This dam is still standing. It is 262 meters tall, and on the night that 2,000 people died below it, it was not damaged. The top meter of stone was washed off the rim. That was all. Every calculation in it was correct. The concrete did exactly what it was built to do. And it did not matter at all, because the thing that failed at Vajont was not the dam. It was the mountain standing next to it. And for 3 years, people had been writing down exactly how fast that mountain was moving. In the 1950s, an Italian power company called SOD went looking for somewhere to store water. They found a gorge in the Dolomites so narrow that a bridge across it would have been short. Narrow is good. A narrow gorge means a small dam holding back a large lake. So they designed the tallest one in the world. 262 meters, which is taller than any building in Europe at the time. But the number that tells you what this thing really was is not the height. It is the width of the top. 3.4 meters. You could walk across the crest of the tallest dam on Earth in 4 steps. It worked because of its shape. It is a double curvature arch, curved in 2 directions at once, like the inside of an eggshell. An arch does not hold water back by being heavy. It holds water back by passing the push sideways into the rock walls of the valley. That is the elegant part, and it is also the trap. An arch dam is only as strong as the mountains it leans on. The mountain on the south side of the gorge is called Monte Toc. In 1959, while the dam was being finished, workers building a road along its flank found cracks in the ground. The ground was moving. That was enough to bring geologists in, and what they found was worse than a crack. The whole flank of Monte Toc was an old landslide. Not a mountain that might slide one day. A mountain that had already slid a long time ago and had come to rest in the position it was now sitting in. That distinction matters more than it sounds. A crack is damage. An old landslide is something else. It means the break has already happened, and the surface the rock would slide on has already been cut, already worn smooth, already there, waiting. Nobody was going to have to wait for that mountain to fail. It had failed once, and it was sitting on the pieces. 3 experts examined the slopes separately. All 3 told the company the same thing. That side of the mountain is unstable. And there was one more voice. A journalist named Tina Merlin had been writing about the project in a national newspaper and about how the company was behaving toward the people in the valley. In November 1960, the Italian state took her to court for spreading false news likely to disturb public order. She was acquitted. 3 years later, 2,000 people below her would be dead. They filled it anyway. In February 1960, the water started to rise, and on the 4th of November, with the lake about 190 meters deep, part of the slope let go. 800,000 cubic meters of rock slid into the reservoir. That is a small slide by the standards of what was coming, but it was not small. It was about 320 Olympic swimming pools of solid rock, dropping into a lake beside the tallest dam in the world. And at the same time, a crack opened along the mountainside above it. Not a hairline. A fracture you could follow with your eyes for 2 kilometers, curving across the flank in the shape of a letter M. That crack was the outline of the piece that wanted to move. The company could see the shape of the future landslide, drawn on the mountain 3 years before it arrived. Here is where it stops being a geology story and starts being a decision story. Nobody hid the landslide. The company knew there was a moving block. Their plan was to control it. The idea was that the lake level was a dial. Raise the water and the slope creeps faster. Lower the water and it slows down. So they would fill the reservoir carefully, watch the movement, and back off whenever the mountain complained. They even dug a tunnel past the slide so that if the block did come down, and split the lake in two, water could still get from one half to the other. Read that again. They built a bypass for the landslide. They were not planning to prevent it. They were planning to live with it. And the plan was not stupid. It was based on a belief that almost everyone in the field held at the time, and most of the time that belief is correct. Most moving slopes move slowly and go on moving slowly. There are hillsides in the Alps that have been creeping downhill for centuries and will still be creeping in 1,000 years. A slope that creeps is a slope letting it stress out a little at a time, and that is normally the safest kind of unstable ground there is. A creeping mountain is not a mountain about to jump, except this one was. To find out how big a wave a landslide would make, they built a model of the valley and dropped things into it. In July 1962, the model gave them a number. If the slide came down, the wave would need about 20 meters of empty dam above the waterline to break against. 20 meters of freeboard, and the wave stays in the lake. So that became the rule. 20 meters sounds like a lot of room. On a wall 262 meters tall, it is the last 7%. The safety of every village downstream was resting on the top 13th of the dam staying dry. Keep the water 20 meters below the crest, and the valley is safe. It is worth being precise about what that number was. It was not a measurement of the future. It was the output of a scale model, and a scale model of a landslide is a very hard thing to build, because the thing you cannot shrink is time. A model slide takes a moment. A real slide of 260 million cubic meters was assumed to take much longer. That single assumption is the whole disaster. So why did it move fast? The answer is in a layer of clay. Underneath the block, running through the rock for hundreds of meters, there were thin beds of clay. When engineers went back afterwards and tested that clay in a laboratory, they found something close to the slipperiest natural material there is. They measured the angle at which it stops holding. About 12 degrees. 12 degrees is the pitch of a gently sloping roof. The side of Monte Toc was resting on something so slick that a gently sloping roof was steep enough to move it. And then the reservoir arrived. Water in a mountain does not just make it heavier. It gets into the pores and the cracks, and it pushes outward, and that outward push lifts the rock apart from the inside and takes away the friction holding it together. The higher the lake, the higher that pressure went. The rain that autumn pushed it higher still. The dial they were turning to control the mountain worked by the same mechanism that was destroying it. And there is one more thing about that clay, which only shows itself once the block is already moving. Friction in a layer like that does not stay constant. Drag it fast enough, and it gives up more of its grip, so the sliding makes the sliding easier. That is why the size argument failed. It was never going to be a big, slow slide. Once this one started, there was nothing left in the system to slow it down. They were measuring the whole time. That is the part that is hard to sit with. There are numbers for this. For most of the project, the mountain crept downhill at about 1 centimeter a week. You would need a month to see it with your eyes. In September 1963, it reached 25 centimeters a day. On the 15th of September, the entire flank moved 22 centimeters in one go. On the 26th, they started letting the lake down. In the first days of October, the mountain moved almost a full meter in a single day. Animals left the slope. People in the villages could hear the ground. The measurements were being taken, written down, and passed along the whole time, and every one of them said the same thing louder than the last. And still the question that has never really been answered is not what they knew. They knew. It is why a number that is doubling every few days did not stop everything. There were men at the dam that night. By October, the movement had become so obvious that some of them had come out onto the crest to look at the mountain. 60 people were on or beside the dam, watching the slope in the last hour of its life. On the 9th of October 1963, at 39 minutes past 10 at night, the south side of Monte Toc came off. 260 million cubic meters of rock along a front 2 kilometers wide. It did not break up. It went as one block, and it reached something like 100 kilometers an hour. 20 seconds later, it hit the water. 25 seconds after that, the reservoir had been completely filled in with mountain, and the water that had been in it had nowhere to go except up. 115 million cubic meters of water was thrown out of the lake. 50 million of it went over the top of the dam, in a wave 250 meters above the crest, a quarter of a kilometer of water standing over a wall 262 meters tall. Then it fell nearly 300 meters into the gorge below and came out of the mouth of that gorge as a wall of water and air. Longarone was in front of it. Longarone, Perego, Revolta, Villanova, and Fay were gone in about 4 minutes. When the sun came up, the dam was still standing. 60 workers who had been at the dam were dead. The road on one side was gone. The top meter of the crest had been scoured off by 50 million cubic meters of water going over it, and below that, nothing. No crack. No failure. The arch had taken a load nobody had ever designed for and passed it into the mountains on either side, exactly as it was supposed to. And here is the thing that makes Vajont different from every other dam story. If it had broken, it would not have helped. The water that killed the valley was already over the top. A dam that failed and a dam that held would have released the same wave onto the same town. The strongest part of the project was the only part that could not save anybody, and it is still up there, holding back nothing at all. The official number of dead is 1,917. Nobody thinks that is exact. About 1,500 bodies were recovered, and half of those could not be identified. Around 350 families lost every single member, which means there was nobody left to report them missing. The trial was moved to L'Aquila, 400 kilometers away, which made it difficult for anyone from the valley to attend. 2 men were convicted. One was sentenced to 5 years, and the other to 3 years and 8 months, and 3 of those years were canceled under an amnesty. Everyone else was acquitted. So the honest summary is this. The mountain was measured. The measurements were correct. The reports were written and passed on. The dam was built better than it needed to be. And every one of those things was true on the 9th of October, and none of them was enough. If you want the next one, the thing that stood or the thing that did not, subscribe, and you will know when it goes up.